The hard part isn't building AI or using AI. It's what do you do with the result?
Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. We are live from Manifest 2026, and there have been some big themes this year around AI, automation, operations all across logistics and supply chain. It's always difficult when you're attending a conference like this to weed through what you're seeing and what you're hearing. There's just so much overwhelm. So today we have two incredible guests with us that are going to help us think through all of the key trends that they're seeing, as well as bring some light to what customer expectations look like right now and the work that they're doing at Ryder to deliver on them. So I'll turn it over to you, Jeff and Gary, to introduce yourselves.
I'm the Senior Vice President at Ryder. I run our e-commerce, omnichannel retail, and Ryder Last Mile Big and Bulky Delivery. And been an entrepreneur my whole life. Sold my business into Ryder about 4 years ago. Happy to lead our division as we tackle these ever-changing elements of supply chain logistics.
Amazing.
Gary Allen, Vice President of Supply Chain Excellence. I've been with Ryder for about 12 years. Before that, I was with DHL, a little bit of consulting with Ernst & Young, as well as FedEx. My responsibilities at Ryder, think of it as like engineering support functions, right? It's automation, it's analytics, solution design, continuous improvement, with really the focus on how do we drive value for our customer.
Well done.
Amazing.
Jeff is a return guest and a fan favorite as well. So thank you both for being here. Let's maybe start off by talking a little bit about the research that Ryder published in 2025. I'd love to hear about some key learnings from the research, which, by the way, we'll link in the show notes for the audience as well. What are some things that you found surprising or interesting from the report?
It's not necessarily surprising. It is interesting. The consumer is very intelligent today. They have a wealth of information at their fingertips. They have lots of choices. And so there's going to be a tremendous amount of comparison shopping. What's interesting as a supply chain company, one of the things that we partner with our customers about is we now need to meet the consumer where they are. Our customers can no longer wait for them to come into the store or to buy online or to go to a kiosk. And so the consumer actually has all of the power today. We've been in some or facing some economic headwinds. Consumer sentiment is suspect at best. We live in a world of higher interest rates. Housing markets are challenging. And so today, our brands have to make sure they're exceeding our customers' demands at all times. They have to deliver on their promise, and they have to do it right the first time, and they have to do it economically. And so one of the key things is that if there's not free shipping, a consumer isn't going to buy that. The consumer is also going to comparison shop when they're online or they're in a store. And so if you think that they're not, you're mistaken. And the consumer is much smarter and is going to make sure they're getting the best bang for the buck.
Absolutely.
And so as we think about this, how do we satisfy the customer? Well, we have to ship it on time. We have to deliver on our promise. If we give them a window as to when it's going to be there, we have to be as efficient as possible to help drive down the costs to our customers so they can deliver on their promise to theirs. I would say that it's just supporting the fact that during challenging times or difficult times, people are going to make better educated decisions.
I think there is the impact of AI consumer shopping as well, right? So I find myself doing that quite regularly now. I'm in the market to buy a watch right now. So I actually talk to ChatGPT, and there is functions that are built in that actually goes to various different sites, and it gives me this carousel mode of selection to say, well, what do you like? Fine tune it. But you are starting to see the trend kind of start lean towards not only is it taking you on that discovery journey, but it's also the selection journey, which is where logistics will have a big part to play if you come to think about it, because you're no longer going to a website to shop. You are actually going to be able to do your shopping right into the platforms of your choice, like ChatGPT or, Claude.
So, AI is changing the way we operate, we think, we do. I think the hard thing on AI, though, is kind of filtering through what's real or what's not. At this conference, too, everything's about AI. But, the first thing I ask is, one, show it to me. Two, you got to narrow the use case a little bit, right? Because it gets so broad. Everybody does AI. We've been doing AI for a long time.
Yep.
But what's new is the Agentic AI, right? And that's changing the game. It's going to not only drive productivity, it's going to change jobs.
And if you think about the retail experience,
Yeah.
it wasn't too long ago that there was no Facebook Marketplace.
Exactly.
Or you couldn't buy something on Instagram. Or you couldn't buy
Social commerce, yeah.
buy something on TikTok. Well, now that's commonplace.
Yep.
And everybody is buying from these arenas every single day.
Yep.
Well, in the not so distant future, you're going to be buying from ChatGPT.
Already there's the consortium around operational network, around how agent to agent within the logistics space and the commerce environment is going to play out. There is a whole nonprofit organization that I'm part of, Help and Drive, and I think Ryder's part of that one as well, Onyx Group. Yeah, so there is a big shift towards that. And I think which is where that free or the promise of delivery, all of that will have to start surfacing up within these, generative AI tools, which the consumer is going to expect day one. If someone else is doing it, it's the same thing as how long did it take for people to come to the conclusion that if you give a date definitive shipping, as long as it's free and date definitive, and you can actually make a commitment, which is what Prime did, right? It drove that expectation, and then people actually felt more comfortable, and the cart abandonment rate actually dropped quite a bit because of that reason. It's the same thing. Look at how many Shopify stores or merchants actually are capable of doing that. And it's the logistics side of the business that has to deliver on that promise. So you have to say, well, I can get it to that consumer within this time frame, right? So, and now we have to do it through the AI side of the equation, because last year's numbers, if I'm not mistaken, there was close to $30-40 billion worth of discovery during Black Friday that happened on AI.
Yes.
That's the report that I saw from Adobe.
One of the biggest changes is you used to have a choice, right? You could either have it fast, you could have it
Free.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you could have it cheap.
Yeah.
Choose two.
Yeah.
Well, the consumer today wants all three.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so as a result of that, with more channels of distribution, with better information, a smarter consumer, and then the Amazon Prime 2 days or less anywhere in the country has changed the whole mindset. And so we as logistics supply chain companies, we need to lean in and we need to figure out how to do more with less. Today, it's a necessity. And so you have to look at automation and you have to look at mechanization as you look at system enhancements. And you have to look at all of these things because it's not an option anymore to be slow or to deliver on your timeline.
Yep.
Because you only really get one shot to upset an internet customer because they have a lot of other choices to go to.
This is true. This is true.
Expectations are up. Consumers are demanding more with less. I think supply chain in general is usually out of sight, out of mind for people unless something goes wrong. One of the things that I know about Ryder is you guys are very thoughtful when it comes to automation. And I see that about your approach, even as you talk about AI. And we'll come back to AI in a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more from you on that.
Automation is moving quickly. The unique thing in e-commerce, and we talked about the customer expectations, but it's the variability in demand, right? And all the different SKUs, the profiles, things change, right? Brands come and go. You think about how many different industries we serve through e-commerce.
Yeah.
I mean, Jet's a little biased. He's been doing e-commerce a long time ago, but it's probably the most complex industry or vertical that we serve because of that, right? And
Well, because of the demand. In old school wholesale, shipping goods into brick and mortar retail, you had a window. As the wholesaler, you had a long line of 3 months, 6 months to manufacture. You had a program with the retailer. Now you don't know that something's going to be sold until the night before. And so that's why we have to rely on Gary's team and the automation team and the engineering team for continuous improvement. But automation is a key to what we do.
yeah, and what's fun with automation, right? Like 10 years ago, a lot of the technologies didn't exist. Kiva was out there. Amazon bought Kiva. That was kind of the start of a lot of automation. But now you look at how it progresses. It's like AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, are
Dime a dozen.
well, they're a commodity. Secret sauce is software and how you connect that together. But our approach to automation is you got to look at the profile, got to think about the customer. Things change. In e-commerce, the key is flexibility. We have to be flexible.
Yep.
Right. And then you got the peaks and, the variability kind of creates that need for flexibility. And so we deploy mostly autonomous mobile robots. ASRs are kind of the two primary solutions that fit this profile. But it's moving quickly. And it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
The good news is it's become mobile and it's become more affordable. And so when I look at our customers' demands, it's really about that return on the investment. If you go back 10 years, 15 years ago, we would put in a standard sortation system that would take up 100,000 square feet of warehouse space, and it would have a capacity limit. So you've lost the space and you have a capacity, and it wasn't fast because it wasn't flexible and it wasn't nimble. Well, now everything has changed, and we're really embracing that change. You need automation. This is absolutely not about cutting heads. We don't want to cut heads. That's not what we're doing. But we need to be able to be faster and more flexible, and the peaks have gotten much higher. And so from a throughput, we need the ability to expand faster and to hit those peaks. But we also have to be able to get a return on our investment quicker.
Well, they are. I mean, if you look at autonomous mobile robots, the payback, the ROI is a year or less, right? And now they're more flexible. It's like, robot as a service. Costs like $7,000. They're not expensive at all.
What's your equation around that? When do you make that decision? Because curiosity, just also for audience that is actually trying to understand this, because you do have those two models between RaaS or robotics as a service platform, right? Like that's what you can get. And it's not truly like SaaS, because SaaS, when my demand increases, I don't need to put a phone call in to say, well, increase my demand on the software, right? It just scales. RaaS does not scale that way, does it? When it comes to like peak, like if you all of a sudden had higher volume, they're not going to come and drop additional robots at your location.
Well, you can put like a bank of order and kind of accrue them and make commitments, but no, based on the demand, they will drop robots in.
And they are just turnkey.
They're just pretty much turnkey.
That's amazing. Once you have a few running.
It's probably about 40% productivity gain in having the robot. And so if you just do the math, it's kind of a 6 to 12 month return on that investment. And now you do have the flexibility that you can ramp up for peak and you can give back after peak.
Right.
And so there is that flexibility. But one of the things that Gary said, it's not just necessarily, it's kind of the razor or the razor blade. If you think about the robot as the razor, what's really key now to the future of these robotics is going to be programming. It's going to be the ability to badge and to wave. And then it gets even harder if you combine multiple technologies into one building, right? We'll have an ASRS. We use gray orange in one of your buildings. We use locust. And in fact, we have about 2,000 AMRs in our network. But when you start combining the technologies together, it gets even more complicated, right? Like how you connect it together, how do you leverage the data? Our approach on the data is we're going to partner with multiple providers. But at the end of the day, we own the data. And then we own the results and the productivity. So it's up to us how we connect.
But there is also the software kind of lock-in. So I had a very interesting conversation with someone else from Ryder recently about this exact subject on how there is the part of, well, do we need all of these? Like, because every vendor brings in their own piece of software and the secret sauce that goes along with it. And you have all of these. And again, they are amazing. Don't get me wrong, right? Like each of them are really cool. But there is an opportunity to, well, an open system that you could get any OEM type robot that you could actually connect into and train it to do your logic. Because I keep saying this, and Jeff heard me previously, was like, we are back to the 90s. There's going to be a lot of software development that companies are going to do, just not buy packages that are available off the shelf, because developing software becomes easier. And as you start thinking about that from an engineering perspective, well, you want your secret sauce so you can get an OEM robot and be able to build into that. Like, do you have a theory on that?
Yeah, well, and the other approach is you buy a versus build, right? At some point in time, what's our own secret sauce, right? So our approach is a few different things. We're going to continue to partner with key providers. Are we ever going to get into the manufacturing of robots? No. But what's happening is we're getting pushed down the software path quickly. And it's not necessarily all software. We're not going to rebuild an execution system, WMS. It's just how you connect it together. And really where it starts is with the data, right? Because that is one of the challenges, is tapping into the data. It's not normalized across technologies today. There's not one system to do it all. And so where we're starting is how can we tap into the data analytics side, get the visibility, get the throughput, get the productivity, and not completely rely on the OEMs, right? And that's kind of where it's heading. It's almost this convergence of a warehouse execution system that layers on top of all the machine. And that's kind of where it's going.
And it's starting to happen. It seems like the market's starting to shift.
If you just think about it this way, what's almost a commodity we'll buy, what's the secret sauce we'll build. That's kind of the approach. And I don't think we'll ever go one way or the other. I think it'll be a combination of the two.
And you guys have been working on, there's a huge fatigue around AI right now, but you guys have been building AI and working on it for many, many years.
We've been doing classification AI for a long time. Machine learning, natural language processing. So it's really the Gen AI. And it gets really confusing around where do you apply Agentic AI, right? And so our approach is let's pick one or two or three use cases to really hone in around what are we trying to solve, right? Problems could be huge. So within the warehouse, our focus is on operational planning, right? I mean, it's on labor. It's where labor meets machines. And how do we forecast? How do we plan that labor? That's where we're starting. Really three elements. It's machines, labor, and inventory. We're starting with the labor side. And we made a decision that we're going to build it ourselves because we already have so many core underlying requirements around labor management, KPIs, metrics. We already own that data.
Yeah.
And so we're starting with that as the key piece. And think of the agent. The agent will look at a forecast. They'll work with the operators. They'll tell the operators, hey, this looks wrong, this looks right. The hard part isn't building AI or using AI. It's what do you do with the result? And every business is a little different, especially in e-commerce. Health and beauty is different than, apparel, right? So you think of it as like everything is not standard, right? And that's the hardest part.
And there's that part of like the agents themselves, and that's why the agents, right, is the terminology. There is the skills that you give it, right? Like, so if it's health and beauty is like, that's a skill that it has to grow. Like you have to take large sets of SOPs and kind of like incorporate into its ontology, right? Like it has to start understanding all of that. And one of the most beautiful things that I find now, and companies are doing this, is taking, like, be it your machine learning use cases, computer vision, NLPs, right? Like whatever it might be, the agents themselves, how do you make them more interactive? Is like if you are a Microsoft Teams or a Slack shop, right? Just treat it like another entity. It's like another human that's there you can talk to, or it tells you, it will message you, be like, yo, bro, like you got labor plan issues, right? It's the way.
We're a Microsoft shop, so we've been using Copilot. And within my data analytics team, it's driving a ton of efficiency because we're using Copilot to do coding and develop work.
Yep.
But you think about the potential. I mean, you may reference SOPs. Just document intelligence alone can drive so many synergies and productivities, right? Like everybody's got documents, right? Every customer's got an SLA. We got different contracts by customers. We got different commitments. So where we're starting, the second piece is around document intelligence and how do you harness the information? But that's going to cascade into like even the machines themselves, right? Because we got a machine that's down. Because on the automation side, it's about uptime. It's about reliability and throughput productivity, correlated to two elements. But you can create an agent to look at the machines, to look at the work instructions. If we have a set one, use that agent to look at historical information around why did it happen here? And then tell the operators, tell the technicians, hey, as a heads up, this is what we see.
For us, we look at AI as a solution in search of a problem. For us, the first thing that we need to do is identify that problem.
Yeah.
The challenge is around the data. But as a 91-year-old business that has made a boatload of acquisitions over the years, we've accumulated a lot of different software sets. And so to get the data that's in a usable format, to be able to make intelligent decisions, it's really find that problem. And then once you've identified that problem, the good news is there's a solution. If AI was a baseball game, I would say we're in like the second or the third inning. So we're still at the very beginning. The good news, and Carrie said this very early on, most people that come to us as an AI provider, we're like, well, show us the return. Show us a real case study. Show us how it's actually working and it's helping people and you're saving money and you're making people more productive. Not a ton of people can do that. The good news is there are some that can, where we're able to use it around security and around safety and around batching and around wave it. Where the future could come for us, the secret is going to be in demand planning. Because when you start to think about inventory management, that's probably where people spend the most amount of money. Or freight optimization.
Lot optimization, right?
Like that. Think about all of these things. These are problems that are identifiable, that have solutions that are proven.
Completely agree. We have been seeing a lot of traction specifically on the data side, what we are observing. You would think unstructured data would be a bigger problem for it. No, it's the easy part. Like your SOPs, creation of SOPs, access to the documentation, like that is the easy part. It's the structured data. And structured data is because, okay, if you got a WMS and a WES and a vendor system, well, the challenge becomes there is a lot of data. Like if you think about a tier 1 WMS, like you guys would utilize, they probably have 600, 700 tables inside the database of that system. Well, you can't have AI looking through all of that all the time. So what you got to do is, again, that term ontology, right? The semantic model, where you have to abstract the data one level above. That's easier for AI to understand. Or else the AI is just going to spin writing SQLs in the background, trying to figure out what's happening with your business. And that's the data normalization I'm guessing you guys are talking about.
So we have a lot of data engineers. But you're right. You said something really important, that the big learning for us a couple of years ago was Gen AI. You don't have to have everything structured. But on the structured side, if it's crap and inconsistent, it's going to come up with wrong interpretations, right? So it's a bit of a balance. The flip side is, do you take an initiative and standardize all the data, right? To Jeff's point, we got to focus on what we're trying to solve for. I mean, we're going through this whole maturity right now. We have, within Ryder, I think we have about 5,000 dashboards. We're Power BI, sure, 5,000. Now, that doesn't mean they're used. And so we're kind of shifting, not only leveraging AI, but just on analytics in general, is operationally, your business, you want to see what you want to see. And exception-based, right? And trigger an alert, trigger an action. You can enable the decision-making from that action with AI, but we're kind of converting analytics into, just think of it as an operational platform. And so when I say we have 5,000 dashboards, as an operator, you don't even know what dashboard it's hitting because you're going into a tool we call OpsBox. And OpsBox is a web-based platform that rides on top. But back to the agents, now it's great because I could trigger a flag to an operator and say, this is what I see, and tell the operator, say, go look at this. Where right now the operators are trying to dig, right, and navigate. And with business, we got thousands of customers. It's not easy.
I can relate with that as well. As someone that lived through systems implementation in warehousing environment multiple times, I'll say this. Operators want report for the particular problem that they have on that day. You're going to develop it as a systems person, right? Power BI or pick your poison. Here's the fact and reality, and I've seen this time and time again. 80% of those reports are never used beyond the first week that it was created. It's absolutely insane. That gets solved with AI because you don't need the reports. Ask it a question, it responds back to you with a nice little chart graph and call it a day.
I mean, reporting is the death of analytics. AI takes analytics to the next level.
Let's maybe talk about operators for a second, though. We've talked about expectations, automation. What I'm hearing from both of you is just how thoughtful you are in the decisions that you make. What would be some advice, or what would you tell operators and brands as they're looking forward over the next year or 2 years? What are some major shifts that they should be preparing for or thinking about? Because the customer expectations are going to continue to get tougher, more complex. There's going to be more challenges.
There's more competition.
More competition.
You have rising costs. You have changing demand. It is a very interesting time in retail. We went from wholesale of people shipping into big boxes. We then went to e-commerce. But the future is this omni-channel solution. And I said this very early on, that the consumer, it's not a supply chain, it's a demand chain. And so that's probably the biggest point that I should emphasize here, is that wherever the consumer wants to be, that's where we need to get to. And so that's why a company like Ryder is so important today in this space, so important to our customers. It's because operations can't do this alone. I couldn't do this without Gary's team, without his continuous improvement team, without his automation team, without his data analytics team. All of these, they are our partner. And one of the things that you said kind of resonated with me, that if I pull up a report after the fact, it doesn't do me any good. What I need to be thinking about is where I need to get to next. And so that's really the future of how are you learning, learning from the mistakes that you made. How are you continuing to improve on what you're doing? And how do you get there? Because rents are going to go back up again. The wages are never coming back down again. The expectations of the consumer are going to be more demanding. And so we need to be more effective. We need to be more efficient. And you can't do that just by putting bodies into a building. Those days are well beyond us. So it's going to be a combination of systemic improvements, of mechanization, of automation, of AI thinking and processes that are going to help us to get there.
I completely agree. I think on the front of competition specifically, I do have a question as a follow-up. You think there's going to be more competition within the space in the 3PL environment, or there is more consolidation going forward? And Jeff, you are the veteran looking at this stuff. So I'm really curious as to what's happening, because there is some news out in the market and you're seeing some trends happening. So
a bit of a challenging time. You need to be well capitalized. You need to be able to weather the storm. You need to be investing in your people, in your infrastructure, in your systems, in your facilities every single day. These are things that you need to be doing in order to be successful. So if you're not capitalized, if you don't have a strong balance sheet, you're not going to be able to weather these storms. We've seen this recently with a couple of closures with some consolidation. Consolidation will continue. There is no doubt. However, entrepreneurs are always going to find a way to be successful. And so new competitors are going to continue to pop up. They're going to be able to think about things differently. They're going to be able to attack them differently. And so there's no time to be complacent. Today is the day where you need to be investing in your future. You need to be delivering on your promise in order to be effective to your customers.
And that's sage advice right there. I could put him on the stage, like everything he said. Yes. Yeah.
And you're right. It's always going to change and evolve. I mean, we can see a world in the 3PL industry that's more about machines and equipment than it is labor. I mean, historically, it's been about labor arbitrage. Obviously, you got to meet all your customer expectations, but there's a world, and it's kind of converging, right, with more non-traditional competitors that either make the machines that want to get into the outsourcing space, or a real estate provider that wants to get into the space as well. And we're kind of getting pushed down this road around, figuring out the machines, the automation, and the data. How far do we want to improve our capabilities and services around more data integrations? As I mentioned, we're not going to build machines ourselves, but how you patch them together and then maintain them. And we maintain trucks all the time. There's nothing stopping us from maintaining robots.
The one thing I have to say on that side is, there's technology, and we saw earlier iteration of this, right, which is the development of solutions. What are the tech-based solutions that came out? And a lot of them were tech-driven. But the ones that actually did really well, right, now, one of yours, was actually were operational excellence. That part of it, people tend to forget, there's the tech and the operation side, and it's that operational excellence still, no matter how much AI or what you do, but if you don't have that.
Without operational excellence, you don't have a business.
Exactly.
So we started out this episode talking about how we're at Manifest, and I'd love to wrap it up by having you both tell us about some of the trends that you're keeping an eye on, anything interesting that you've seen that you'd like to share with the audience.
To me, probably the biggest one is the changing landscape of retail. Whether it's the Facebook marketplace, the Instagram, the ChatGPT, retail is going to continue to evolve. And so we need to be proactively thinking about solutions to help our customers to deliver on their promise to theirs. Regardless of how we do it. We've never shipped to TikTok, or we've never shipped in through ChatGPT before. We need to be thinking about that today, because eventually that's going to be important to our customer. So I think the changing landscape of retail is really important. The second thing, and there's been a lot of talk on AI, we do see a lot of companies. The good news is that there are companies that have proven, and a lot of them are fairly micro, whether it's yard security, whether it's safety, whether it's badging. There is technology out there today that can solve for that. And we need to be embracing that every day, today, before the customer comes to us. So as a provider, we need to be proactive. We need to be a better listener to our customer. And we have to be willing and able to evolve and to change. Because change is coming. It's always come. Yes, today it comes faster.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
I would just add, I do think it's changing. The landscape's moving faster, and it's not going to slow down. And a lot of it's on technology. I think for what we do as part of Ryder is we got to be ahead of that curve, right? We got to invest in R&D. We got to invest in not only the people side of it, but the capabilities, the technologies, right? And so part of it is how do we start moving down that path quicker, right? Because it's changing our role as a service provider into maybe a maintenance provider, maybe robotics. So, I mean, AI is overhyped right now. Well, at the end of the day, it's just going to make our jobs easier.
Yeah.
But as a 3PL, how do we become more tech-driven?
Yep.
That's the way of the future for us. So
I love that. Yep. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. This has been an incredible conversation, and we look forward to many more. We will, again, link the report that we spoke about in the comments, and welcome the audience to connect with both of you on LinkedIn as well, and give you guys a follow.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you.